Hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Leading Yourself podcast. Can you believe that half of the year is over? It's hard to believe how fast this year has gone and all the things that have happened in the last 6 months in the world, in my life, I'm sure in your life as well. And as we approach the end of June, beginning of July, I always like to take some time with myself, for myself, to do a mid year checking. And this year, I'm not only doing a mid year checking, but I'm doing a mid year reset. And this is coming from 2022 being my year of reinvention. I think that I've had a lot of resets this year already in the first half of the year. And I want to be very intentional about the next 6 months of 2022. Last week, I hosted a completely free session on this topic on doing a mid year life and career reset. And I thought about just sharing the replay of the session with you, but it was 2 hours. So I know personally, I like to make these episodes a little bit shorter. So I'm going to give you a brief summary of how I approach a mid year reset. Let's dig in. Welcome to the Leading Yourself podcast. This is your host, Carolina de Arriba. I'm an HR professional, health and fitness coach, wife, mom, and above all things, a goal getter. In this podcast, we're going to be digging into all things leadership, professional and career development, habits, and relationships. This is a podcast for those who want to become the best version of themselves. Those who have big dreams and are willing to embrace the journey and put in the work to achieve them. My goal is to share with you the tools, tips, and tricks to help you in your journey. So let's dig into today's episode. Can you believe that we are entering the second half of the year already? I mean, this year is going by super, super fast. A lot has happened in the last 6 months. And I always like to take the time halfway through the year to kind of reconnect with my goals and do a check in with myself. And this year, I think it's more important than ever because so much has happened in the first half of the year. And it's a great opportunity for me to reflect on the decisions that I've made this year, on how life is going, the things that I've been working on, and be intentional about how I enter the second half of the year and how I show up for myself, for others in the remaining of the year, and what is that I want to focus on and prioritize. So, last week I hosted a class. It was about 2 hours. We had some Q&A embedded into that time, and I feel like I was going really fast because there was so much that I wanted to share, but it was an amazing, amazing session. And I thought sharing the session with all of you here on the podcast, but I think 2 hours is too much for a podcast. I always like to keep these short and sweet. So I'm going to give you a highlight overview of the class that I did last year on this mid year reset. I did a mid year life and career reset. I'm going to focus on the life part of it in this episode. And I think I will share with you the recording of the career piece from the class directly, since that was like half an hour maybe. So let's dig into the first part. And I need to start with why a reset, right? You might be thinking, that's great that you're doing a mid year life and career reset, but what even is a reset and why a reset? I use this analogy when we were talking about the career reset, but I think, like, for me, the way I see it, what is a reset? A reset is, let me use this comparison because I think you all can relate with this. When you reset your computer or your phone, right? It doesn't mean that you just throw it away and you buy a new one because that one is not working. Before buying a new phone on a new computer, you try to reset, right? Your computer, your phone, to restore it to factory settings. And resetting usually is the fastest way to get your systems back on track. So when it comes to resetting your life or resetting your career, for me means like restore your passions, your focus, and your ability to thrive in life and in your career. So that is what a mid-year reset means for me, and starts with a lot of self reflection and just asking some very good quality questions to yourself. And I'm going to share with you how that looks for me. What is the process, the framework that I personally use to do that mid year reset? But let's talk about why a reset first. Now that we understand what a reset is, let's talk about why a reset. I think that throughout the year is important to reflect, to review, and to refocus. So it's not only resetting for the sake of resetting, but is resetting, realigning, sometimes restarting, and a lot of times refocusing. I think that we live in such a rapid, fast paced, changing world that setting goals on an annual basis is just not enough. Um, as the year progresses, we also try to relax our focus, our motivation, our efforts, and definitely our motivation takes a dent. We live in a world where we have so many distractions that is so easy sometimes to even forget about what our goals are or forget about what we have accomplished. I think that when I ask the question, if I was to ask this question to you, ask very, be brutally honest with yourself. If I ask you to tell me what exactly were the goals that you set for yourself at the beginning of the year, would you be able to tell those to me without peeking on your notes or whatever you wrote your goals? A lot of people have already forgotten about what their goals are. And those who remember what their goals are, if you are brutally honest with yourself, how much progress have you made towards that? How much of a focus has it been, or have you been distracted by other things? And then again, I think we are so focused on the road ahead and the goal and the target ahead of us that a lot of times we forget to take a pause and look backwards, not because we're going backwards, but just to acknowledge how far we've come. So that's why I think a mid year check in and reset is so important. So before I jump into what are the components of a mid year life reset, I think that it all starts with getting in the right mindset. So before you jump in and do this mid year reset, you need to calibrate your mindset. And I have 5 quick tips to help you get in the right mindset so you can get the best out of a mid year check in and reset. The first one is quickly check in with yourself. Like, is it a right time to do this? And I don't think there will always be a right time. And I don't want you to use this as an excuse and say, when, whatever, then I'll do the mid year check in. But just check in with yourself. Do you feel, are you in a positive mood? Are you in the right mindset to take a deeper dive into the first half of your year? Are you in the right mindset to refocus and recalibrate and reprioritize? Right? The second tip is if you're going to do a mid year check in and reset, you need to schedule time. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. You need to make the time for yourself, or with yourself for yourself to do this. It's totally, totally worth it. So, what I would encourage you to do is if so far you resonate with what a reset is and why you need a reset, and you're like, keep talking, Carolina, because I want to do one. do me a favor, pause the audio right now, go to your calendar and schedule 2 hours with yourself in the next week. Block 2 hours of time. You probably are not going to need the 2 hours, but the last thing that I want is for you to be rush finishing this. Find a time that you know that is going to be a time that you're going to be able to focus on this, that you're going to be able to lower the volume of all the noise around you and increase the volume of your own internal dialogue, and you're going to be able to focus on doing this. The third tip that I have is prep your environment. Make sure that you have a place, you plan ahead where is that you're going to do this reset, where you can be by yourself without interruptions. I like to, put my phone in a different room. I like sometimes to light a candle, put some background music. I like meditation type music, but you can use any playlist that you like. If you like upbeat music, why not? Like, prep the environment so you make out of this a whole experience. The next thing is tip number 4, free up your mind. We have so much going on in our heads that we need to empty our minds. And I know that sounds impossible, but here's what I like to do. I like to pick up a notebook or a piece of paper and spend the first 15 minutes, maybe it's 5, whatever long it takes you, to dump in that piece of paper everything that is going on in your mind. That appointment that you need to make, that thing that you need to go buy at the grocery store, that birthday party you need to take your kids to, or that project at work, or that thing that you forgot about, whatever it is, do a brain dump. This is also actually a great technique that you can do before going to bed if you struggle to fall asleep because you can shut your brain off. That's something I always have a notebook by my bed. So when that happens, I can do a brain dump. But I think starting this process with a brain dump is going to pay back tenfold. And the fifth step is start with gratitude. Before you even start doing anything else, focus on gratitude. What are you grateful for right now? What are you grateful for in your life? Or even since we're doing a mid year check in, look at the last 6 months, right? From January until this point, what has happened that you're grateful for? What are the small and big things and the in between things that you're grateful for in 2022? And I think now you're ready to go deeper into this mid year reset. So, here's the first thing that I like to start with after I've done my brain dump, I prepare my environment, I do some gratitude. I start with a life audit. And if you've been following along the podcast, you know what I'm talking about because I talk about this when I'm setting goals at the beginning of the year. I talked about this in the episode I did about spring cleaning your life. And now, once again, this is what I start with. So, this is a practice that I do multiple times a year, actually, quarterly. At the beginning of the year, spring break, half of the year, then on the fall, and then again at the beginning of the year. And basically, what it is using the wheel of life. So, there's 8 categories that I assess myself in a scale from 1 to 10. I'm not going to go into the details of each of these categories. You can go back and listen to some of the episodes I've done. Like I think the most recent one was spring cleaning your life, where I go and explain this in detail. So I'm not going to do it today. So I can focus on the other aspects of this framework. But I assess myself in a scale 1 to 10, how fulfilled I feel in those areas in my life. And I want to make an important distinction here. I'm not measuring my level of success, I'm measuring my level of fulfillment. A lot of times we use this interchangeable. And while I think they're like cousins, they're not the same, right? So the areas of my life that I assess are my health, my career, my growth, fun, love or relationships, friends, family, and my finances. And I assess myself 1 to 10. And then I also define where do I want to be by the end of the year. So that by default gives me like a gap, right? Where I am now and where do I want to be by the end of the year. And then I pick 3 areas that I want to prioritize for the second half of the year. Typically, the ones that have the bigger gaps or the ones that I ranked the lowest. At the end of the day, you need to think about this as a wheel, right? If this was a tire on your vehicle and there were some areas that were ranked at a 10 and then some at a 2 and some at a 4 and some at a 6, you can't drive your car like that, right? You need to even out the tire in order for the tire to move you forward. And the same is with life. If you have areas that are considerably lower than others that are are sourced of frustration or negative feelings or worry, I want to focus on those to bring them to a level that is at par with other areas of my life. So I pick 3 and I write down a SMART goal for each of those areas. And I pick one goal for each of the areas. So I have 3 goals to work for, to work at for the next 6 months. And then I do a brainstorming of what are some actions that I can take that would help me increase my level of fulfillment in those areas that will help me achieve that goal. And actually, as part of the mid-year check-in and reset, I take an action right there because I think that when this is fresh in your mind, when you're feeling all the feelings, because you should be feeling all the feelings as you're going deeper into these areas of your life, that is a time to make an action, a move that is going to guarantee that you're going to continue working on that topic. So let's say, for example, that you're focusing on your health and you want to eat healthier. So maybe as part of this mid-year reset, I don't know, you subscribe to a food delivery service as an example. So, the next thing that I like to do after I've done that Wheel of Life assessment, that life audit, again, check out the Spring Cleaning Your Life episode. I will put a link on the show notes of this podcast episode so you can find it easily. I go deeper into how to use this tool, and I think I even have a link in there to an actual worksheet that you can use to do this exercise. The next thing that I do as part of this mid-year checking reset is I revisit my goals. So I typically save my goals as a note in my phone. So I go back and I read through my goals and I ask myself some deep, good quality questions. Like, for example, first of all, what were my top goals at the beginning of the year? As I said, many people have already forgotten about their goals. And then I ask myself, how am I doing in achieving these goals? Am I making progress? If I'm making progress, like what have been some key achievements that I've had so far this year? And I always like to take the time to think through and write down my achievements because I tend to forget about those, right? I am the kind of person, and maybe you can relate to this, that I'm focused on the finish line that is ahead of me. And very rarely, unless I am very intentional, I look back to celebrate my accomplishments. So this mid year check-in reset is an opportunity for me to celebrate my accomplishments so far this year. And then I asked myself, what is really working well in helping me make progress towards my goals? What are some things, typically are habits for me or routines, but what are the things that are helping me Or who are the people helping me in making progress towards my goals? Maybe are some mentors or friends or some of the accountability groups that I'm part of or the communities that I'm part of. And then I see the other side of the coin, right? Like, where haven't I been able to make progress and what might be getting on the way for me to make progress on these goals? And sometimes even that leads to the question of, are these goals still aligned anymore, right? So for me, 2022, if you've been following along, you know it's my year of reinvention. So I'm changing, I'm evolving, I'm really focusing on that this year. And maybe, the goals that I set at the beginning of the year were set by a different version of me. And now this version of me is like, I don't know if that feels aligned anymore. So sometimes we check in with our goals and our progress and we keep going without questioning the goal. So I think it's important in this mid-year check-in and reset to question the goal itself. Is it still valid? Is it still aligned? Does it feel aligned? Have your priorities changed since the year started? Maybe something happened that made you take a detour or change direction, and now your priorities have changed. And therefore, your goals should change and be adjusted to those new priorities. And then the last thing that I like to ask myself is, when I look ahead, what results would I like to realize in the next 6 months? So, if I was sitting having coffee with a friend on December 31st of this year, and I were to look back into the year, what would be the things that I would like to tell my best friend that I did this year, that happened this year, that I accomplished this year? And that helps me kind of recalibrate my goals and I make adjustments. In fact, I just did this process for myself and I make quite a few adjustments on my goals, right? My priorities have changed. As I said, I've evolved. I'm a different version of myself that I was back in January or December of last year. And when I look ahead, I see I place different value on different things. And therefore, I adjusted my goals. And then the last question, which is, I think one of the most important questions that you can ask yourself is, what is the type of person that I need to become to have this life, to accomplish these things? And it's not only about the accomplishment, it's about the life that you want to have, the lifestyle that you want to live, the life that you want to live, the things that you want to have in your life, the people that you want to have in your life, the kinds of relationships that you want to have in your life. That when you look at that wheel of life and you see a very well balanced, rounded wheel where you feel fulfilled in all areas of your life, what is the kind of person that you need to become to have that life? And for me, I'm going to share just a couple of things that came up for me just to give you like an example. And you can pick whatever is for you, but I always, at the top of the page, I write down, I am the type of person that, and then I write down a series of statements. So for me, I think I shared this with you when I share my UHPW journey, but this came from there. Is I am the type of person that believes in herself, that stands up for herself and for her dreams. I am strong and vulnerable at the same time. I'm always grateful and always show appreciation for life and for others. I am the type of person that focuses on building her future rather than reliving her past. I am the type of person that builds boundaries for herself and keeps promises for herself and to others. I am the kind of person that takes care of herself physically, mentally, and emotionally. I am the kind of person that is always learning, growing, and evolving. Those are just some examples. I have a really long list to define the type of person that I need to be. And some of those things are already part of my current identity, and some of them are things that are more an aspiration, right? Something that represents who I want to evolve into. Who do I want to be um, in order to support the life that I want? Okay, the last piece that I'm going to share today, and then I'll share with you an additional episode later this week, focusing specifically on career. But one last thing that I want to share with you is I also, as part of the mid year check in and reset, I reconnect with my routines. If you know me, you know that I'm big around habits and around routines. Like it's a big thing for me. And I think that routines and habits are so helpful, right? Because they help us automate decisions that we take throughout the day. It's like, I'm sure, like brushing your teeth. You probably brush your teeth every day at the same time or after the same event, right? Whether it's when you wake up or before you go to bed or after eating, but you have a routine and you don't even think about um, brushing your teeth. You just do it. And when you don't, when you skip a day for whatever reason, you feel weird, right? You can feel it building in your teeth. So for me, routines are amazing. But I think for me as well, it's important to ask myself some questions on, like, for example, are my routines still serving me? Are your routine still serving you? I always share how impactful my morning routine is for me. It's like a non-negotiable. But I need to ask myself on a regular basis, is this routine still serving me? Right? And sometimes it's not that I'm going to stop that routine completely, but what are some tweaks that I can make in my routine so it continues to serve me? What is something new that you can incorporate into your daily routines that is going to support your identity and your goals going forward, looking into the second half of 2022? What are some things that you can eliminate from your routines because they're no longer serving you? They're not longer aligned with the person that you know you need to be or the goals and priorities that you have for the second half of the year. And then, even if your routine's still serving you, like my morning routine, I am 100% confident that continues to serve me, right? And my morning routine started as a 15-minute routine. Now it's almost 2 hours. And every part of it, every chunk, every component of it, I have seven that I've intentionally built into my morning routine. I did an episode, I think it's episode 2 of this podcast, where I like walk you through what are those 7 elements in my morning routine. So you can go and check it out. But those blocks continue to serve me. But sometimes I need to ask myself, how can I reinvigorate my morning routine? What are those small tweaks that I can make so it is more relevant? It keeps me on my toes and I amplify how much it serves me. So, for example, one component in my morning routine is exercise. And maybe for me, reinvigorating that part of my morning routine means that instead of walking, now I'm going to run. Or still, instead of lifting weights 5 days a week, now I'm going to do more yoga and more Pilates and more stretching or more meditation. I have a section on my morning routine that is inspiration. And as part of that, I do the 6 a.m. Club. Is that still serving me? Is there anything, little changes I can make to the 6 a.m. club to reinvigorate my inspiration? Or is there anything else that I can add? Maybe is new journal prompts. Maybe is changing or shaking up my gratitude practice. Whatever that is for you, but just ask yourself the question, how can you reinvigorate your morning routine so you continue to amplify the positive impact that it has in your life? And that doesn't apply only for your morning routine, but any routine and all your routines throughout your day. Um, so that is also something I like to do as part of the mid year checking. So, I am going to stop here for today. I want to go deeper into the topic of resetting your career. That is where I really get into the reset. If you know me or you have been following the podcast, you know that earlier this year I made a really difficult decision of quitting my job after 13 years working at this amazing company. I still believe it's an amazing company. And I'm so grateful for every year that I spent working at this company. But I went through an exercise that I explained in this master class, mid year life and career reset. And I want to share with you in the next podcast episode a replay of that resetting your career portion, because this is the exercise I did that led me to make the decision to quit my job, even though I was very successful, right? Talking about that wheel of life, if I was ranking myself in terms of success and looking at my career, I probably was a 9 or a 10, right? Um, but as a result of this reset that I did at the beginning of the year, I decided to again quit my job, start all over again in a new company, in a new job, where I did not knew anyone or anything, and I'm completely outside of my comfort zone right now. So I will share more with you on the next episode. I hope that this first part of the mid year reset was helpful. I hope you got some ideas and that you decide to do your own version of your mid year checking and reset. And I hope you found some tools, some maybe questions that you can ask yourself that inspire you to go through that process. As always, if you enjoyed today's podcast episode, if you felt it was helpful, do me a favor, share it with a friend. And with that, I will see you here later this week for the second part of this series where we'll go deeper into resetting your career. Have an amazing day, and I will talk to you soon.